Empowerment is authority. It's the process of getting stronger and more confident and more engaged. And to be empowered is to move through the world without any kind of fear or any kind of apology. Nobody's journey is seamless or smooth. We all stumble. We all have setbacks. If things go wrong, you hit a dead end. It's just life's way of saying, time to change course. Every failure, every crisis, every difficult time, I say, what is this here to teach me? If you really get the lesson, you pass and you don't have to repeat the class. If you don't get the lesson, it shows up wearing another pair of pants to give you some remedial work. Difficulties come when you don't pay attention to life's whisper. Whatever you resist persists, but if you ask the right question, not why is this happening, but what is this here to teach me? What is this here to teach me? It puts you in the place and space to get the lesson you need. Letting the awareness of who you are stimulate everything that you do. Don't react against a bad situation. Merge with that situation instead. And the solution will arise from the challenge. Because surrendering yourself doesn't mean giving up. It means acting with responsibility.
I figured out early on, I had these dreams for myself. I used to tell my father, I'm going to live in a house on a hill. I'm going to have $1 million. And I learned early in my career that the dream I had for myself couldn't compare to the dream that life had for me. So I figured out how to lean into life and allow the flow that was designed for me to follow, to allow that flow to be my guide. And every decision I've ever made has come from listening to the flow that represents the truth in me that is also the truth in you. Being able to make the right choice based upon what is the truth of you is the dream and prayer I hold for you today. Everybody has what I call this instinct, this inner voice. Every decision I've ever made that led me to the right space and place in my life, I got there because I relied on that inner voice. When I was 30 years old and about to leave Baltimore, because I felt something inside, that thing, that instinct, that flow, that truth that said, it's time to move on. My bosses said, you're right here in Baltimore, you're a little fish in a big pond, you can grow old here. I go, that's the problem. I don't want to grow old doing the evening news here. So I listened to that inner voice that said, go. And every decision I made after coming to Chicago, when everybody said, it's too big of a risk to own yourself, to own your show. What if that show fails? I said, I'm gonna bet on myself. Because the truth of me that I was allowed to get still and feel said, take the risk, bet on yourself. It's a big, hard world out there, but you're ready for it. And you're ready because there is nothing more powerful than you using your personality to serve the calling of your soul. Every one of us has been called to the planet to use. You've got to have clarity about who you really are. There is no life without a spiritual life. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So your real job as you go out to try to find one and have all of this anxiety and fear, and your real job is to know the truth and to create a spiritual practice that allows you to stay in it. To be clear, I'm not talking about your religion. I'm talking about whatever it is that nurtures the essence of you in such a way that you can do what you came here to do. We all want to be able to live out the truest expression of ourselves as human beings. And in order to do that, You've got to practice, you've got to develop that spiritual muscle that allows you to check in with yourself and not have to ask everybody else about a decision, but to have the clarity of your own knowing, the comfort of your own knowing. And to do that, you've got to live in the space of gratitude. That is my number one spiritual practice. Oh, Oprah, that's easy for you because you got everything. I got everything because I practiced being grateful.
Everybody works hard and everybody has their own dreams. There was a time where I used to spend a lot of energy wanting things. When you can surrender to the dream, you get to live in the space of the higher power. You get to live in the space that you purposefully have come to earth to claim for yourself. So around 1984, I was reading the New York Times review of The Color Purple. And I thought, whoa, this sounds like a really great book. I read The Color Purple in one afternoon, went back to the bookstore, bought every book of The Color Purple. So I passed out the book to everybody I knew. Please read The Color Purple, read The Color Purple. Then I start to hear that somebody's going to do a movie about The Color Purple. But I don't know anybody in the movie business. By this time, I was on AM Chicago. I don't know anybody. I start praying to God. God, please help me find a way to get into Color Purple. I say, Jesus, I don't even have to have a speaking part. I will be, because I went to the movies and I saw on the movie credits, at the last credit, there's something called Best Boy. So I said, Jesus, if you just let me be best girl, that'll be all right by me. I can be best girl. So I start praying for The Color Purple. As divine law would have it, Quincy Jones comes to Chicago. And he is in Chicago for 1/2 of a day. He was in his hotel room. He was coming out of the shower, and the television in his hotel room is on AM Chicago. There sits little chubby me with my Jerry curl on AM Chicago. Quincy Jones tells Reuben Cannon, the casting agent, I think I found Sophia. So I get a call from Reuben Cannon. I'm calling about a movie. It's called Moon Song. Would you be interested to come and audition? And I say, I have not been praying for Moon Song. I've been praying for The Color Purple. He said, well, I think you should come and audition. So I go to audition. You know, movie people, they make everything all secret. Steven Spielberg didn't want anybody to know he was doing Color Purple. So on the outside of the script, it says Moon Song. But I know all the words by heart. So when I open the script, I know this is The Color Purple, Jesus. This is The Color Purple. So I auditioned for The Color Purple. I can't even believe it. They don't just want me to be the water girl or the best girl. They are asking me, do I want a part in the movie? 3 months pass. 3 months is a long time. I haven't heard anything. So I call Reuben Cannon. I say, Mr. Cannon, I'm sorry, sir. I haven't heard anything. I expected to hear something by now. And Reuben Cannon says to me, you don't call me, I call you. And I didn't call you. Do you understand that I have real actresses who have auditioned for this part? And he tells me who just left his office. And I went, well, okay, I'm not getting that part. So I hang up the phone and I start crying. So I decide that this is because the fat has finally caught up with me. And now I must get rid of the fat. In 2 weeks, I am going to go to a fat farm and I'm going to lose 25 pounds. I said, God, I don't understand. I thought it was for me. You ever had that talk with God? I thought it was for me. And then 3 months pass, and then Reuben Cannon says, real actresses have just left his office. So I start to pray on the track, and I am running around at the track, at the fat farm. It starts to rain. Help me let it go, because now I've become obsessed with it, and it's now controlling my life. I start praying, running around the track. There's nobody on the track. So then I really start to cry. Oh, Lord, help me. Help me let it go. But I am not going to be able to see the other actress in my part. I won't be able to see it. Won't be able to see Color Purple. So then I started, I don't know where it came from. I surrender all.
I surrender all to thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all. I sang and I cried. I sang and I cried and I prayed some more until I could reach the point where not only will I be able to go to the movie, but I can bless the other actress. And I tell you, in my greatest testimony, that the instant I laid that thing down, it had no control over me anymore. I didn't feel anything about it anymore. When I let it go, when I intentionally surrendered it to the power that was greater than I could ever know, the instant that happened, a woman comes running out of the cafeteria screaming, "Winfrey? Is your name Winfrey?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Somebody's on the telephone for you. He say named Spielberg." I get to the phone. He says, "I hear you're at a fat farm." I said, "No, sir. This is a health retreat." He says, "I'd like to see you in my office in California tomorrow. And if you lose a pound, you could lose this part." No problem do I have. I don't have no problem not losing a pound. So, honey, I packed my bags and I stopped at the Dairy Queen. I got 3 scoops just in case I'd lost half a pound. And the next day I was in Steven Spielberg's office and he said, "You're hired. You're hired."
The beautiful thing about learning is that nobody can take that away from you. The world has so many lessons to teach you. I consider the world, this earth, to be like a school, and our life, the classrooms. And sometimes here in this planet Earth school, the lessons often come dressed up as detours or roadblocks, and sometimes as full-blown crises. And the secret I've learned to getting ahead is being open to the lessons from the grandest universe of all, that is the universe itself. It's being able to walk through life eager and open to self-improvement and that which is going to best help you evolve, because that's really why we're here, to evolve as human beings. So, to grow into being more of ourselves, always moving to the next level of understanding, the next level of compassion and growth. One of the greatest compliments I've ever received, I interviewed with a reporter when I was first starting out in Chicago, and then many years later I saw the same reporter and she said to me, "You know what? You really haven't changed. You've just become more of yourself." And that is really what we're all trying to do, become more of ourselves. And I believe that there is a lesson in almost everything that you do in every experience, and getting the lesson is how you move forward. It's how you enrich your spirit. And trust me, I know that inner wisdom is more precious than wealth. The more you spend it, the more you gain. So here I am, 22, making $22,000 a year, and yet it didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. The first sign, as President Hennessy was saying, was when they tried to change my name. The news director said to me at the time, "Nobody's going to remember Oprah, so we want to change your name. We've come up with a name we think that people will remember and people will like. It's a friendly name. Susie." Hi, Susie. Very friendly. You can't be angry with Susie. But my name wasn't Susie. And you know, I'd grown up not really loving my name, because when you're looking for your little name on the lunch boxes and the license plate tags, you're never going to find Oprah. So I grew up not loving the name, but once I was asked to change it, I thought, well, it is my name. And do I look like a Susie to you? I thought, no, it doesn't feel right. I'm not going to change my name. And if people remember it or not, that's okay. And then they said they didn't like the way I looked. This was in 1976, where your boss could call you in and say, "I don't like the way you look." Now that would be called lawsuit. Back then, they could just say, "I don't like the way you look." So they sent me to a salon where they gave me a perm, And after a few days, all my hair fell out and I had to shave my head. And then they really didn't like the way I looked, because now I am black and bald and sitting on TV. Not a pretty picture. But even worse than being bald, I really hated being sent to report on other people's tragedies as a part of my daily duty, knowing that I was just expected to observe when everything in my instinct told me that I should be doing something. I should be lending a hand. So, as President Hennessy said, I'd cover a fire, and then I'd go back and I'd try to give the victims blankets. And I wouldn't be able to sleep at night because of all the things I was covering during the day. Sometimes I wouldn't read the copy, and because I wanted to be spontaneous, and I'd come across a list of words I didn't know and mispronounce. And one day I was reading copy, and I called Canada, Canada. And I did just that. I cracked myself up on the air. But at the same time, my dad was saying, Oprah Gail, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. You better keep that job. And my boss was saying, this is the nightly news. You're an anchor, not a social worker. Just do your job. So I was juggling these messages of expectation and obligation and feeling really miserable with myself. I'd go home at night and fill up my journals, because I've kept a journal since I was 15, so I now have volumes of journals. So I'd go home at night and fill up my journals about how miserable I was and frustrated, and then I'd eat my anxiety. That's where I learned that habit. And after 8 months, I lost that job. They said I was too emotional, I was too much. But since they didn't want to pay out the contract, they put me on a talk show in Baltimore. And the moment I sat down on that show, the moment I did, I felt like I'd come home. I realized that TV could be more than just playground, but a platform for service, for helping other people lift their lives. And the moment I sat down doing that talk show, it felt like breathing. It felt right. And that's where everything that followed for me began. And I got that lesson. When you're doing the work you're meant to do, it feels right. And every day is a bonus, regardless of what you're getting paid. What I know now is that feelings are really your GPS system for life. When you're supposed to do something or not supposed to do something, your emotional guidance system lets you know. Every right decision I've ever made has come from my gut. And every wrong decision I've ever made was a result of me not listening to the greater voice of myself. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. That's the lesson. So when we're involving the wholeness of ourselves in our work, both our expertise and our emotion. So I say to you, forget about the fast lane. If you really want to fly, just harness your power to your passion. Honor your calling. Everybody has one. Trust your heart, and success will come to you. So how do I define success? Let me tell you, money's pretty nice. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that it's not about money, because money is very nice. I like money. It's good for buying things. But having a lot of money does not automatically make you a successful person. What you want is money and meaning. You want your work to be meaningful, because meaning is what brings the real richness to your life. What you really want is to be surrounded by people you trust and treasure, and by people who cherish you. That's when you're really rich. So lesson one, follow your feelings. If it feels right, move forward. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. Nobody knows for sure where you'll go in your life. The anxiety may start to creep in. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. Relax. Take a breath. You're in really good hands, because God's got your back. All you need to do is know who you are. And I know you know who you are. So here are a few things I want you to know that I know for sure. Don't be afraid. All you have to know is who you are, because there is no such thing as failure. There is no such thing as failure. What other people label or might try to call failure, I have learned, is just God's way of pointing you in a new direction. You may take several paths that end up on what might be a dead end for you at the moment. But this is what I also know for sure. You must trust in the words of my favorite Bible verse that say, and know that the Lord will lead you to a rock that is higher than thou. Every one of us has a calling. There's a reason why you are here. I know this for sure. And that reason is greater than any degree. It's greater than any paycheck. And it's greater than anything anybody can tell you that you're supposed to do. Your real job is to find out what the reason is and get about the business of doing it. Your calling isn't something that somebody can tell you about. It's what you feel. It is a part of your life force. It is the thing that gives you juice, the thing that you're supposed to do. And nobody can tell you what that is. You know it inside yourself. Sometimes you find out what you're supposed to be doing by doing the things you're not supposed to do. So don't expect the perfect job that defines your life's work to come along next week. If that happens, take the blessing and run with it. But if not, be grateful to be on the path where you eventually want to live. Abide in the space of gratitude, because this is what I know for sure, that only through being grateful for how far you've come in your path can you leave room for more blessings to flow. Blessings flow in the space of gratitude. Everything in your life is happening to teach you more about yourself. So even in a crisis, be grateful. When disappointed, be grateful. When things aren't going the way you want them to, be grateful that you have sense enough to turn it around. Even when things are difficult, be grateful. Honor your calling. Don't worry about how successful you will be. Don't worry about it. Focus on how significant you can be in service, and the success will take care of itself. And always take a stand for yourself, your values. You're defined by what you stand for. Your integrity is not for sale. You have to be willing to stand up for what you believe in. If I could count the number of times I have been asked to compromise and sell out myself for one reason or another, I would be a billionaire 10 times over. My integrity is not for sale, and neither is yours. There were many times, Diane Hudson, who was working with me for 20 years, can tell you this, many times when we were told that we would lose the advertisers, we would lose the ratings. I said, I'm gonna take the high road. They said, you won't be able to survive in this business taking the high road. You won't be able to get the numbers. The advertisers will drop out. And I said, let them. We will chart our own course. We will stand up for what we believe in. Harriet Tubman once said that she could have liberated thousands more if only she could have convinced them that they were slaves. So do not be a slave to any form of selling out. Maintain your integrity. It has always been, I believe, the only solution to all of the problems in the world, and it remains the only solution. The most important lesson I can offer you from my own life is that in order to remain successful, as you walk the path of privilege, you must not forget the less privilege you've left behind. You cannot continue to succeed in the world or have a fulfilling life in the world unless you choose to use your life in service somehow to others and give back what you have been given. That's how you keep it. That's how you get it. That's how you grow it. And sometimes it doesn't even take a lot to save somebody. As you all know, I built this beautiful school in South Africa, and I spend a lot of time trying to grow my daughters into a future as bright as yours. Recently, I was with them, and we were all sitting around talking about careers and the possibility for them. And I speak to what is possible. When you see me, you see what is possible. I saw Sidney Poitier receive the Academy Award in 1964. I was 10 years old, and I watched him get the Academy Award for Lilies of the Field. And as he accepted his award, I'd never seen a black man on television in a suit. I'd never seen a black man get out of a limousine and go anywhere on television. And when I saw Sidney Poitier accept his Academy Award for Lilies of the Field, I remember sitting on my linoleum floor, babysitting for my half-sister and brother, saying, if a black man can do that, I wonder what I can do. I stand here a symbol of what is possible when you believe in the dream of your own life. As you have been liberated, you must liberate others. I know that it's possible to do, every one of us in our lives, to help somebody, to liberate somebody, to save somebody. I think some people think that, are under the impression that I was born empowered. But the truth is, I know very well what it's like to be marginalized, to be told either subtly or quite directly that my contribution isn't or wasn't welcome, that my face was invisible, and that my needs were an affront. So back when I was doing the news in Baltimore, I asked to be paid the same as my co-anchor. So he was doing the same job I was doing, except that he called me babe all the time. Babe, yeah, babe. So I went in and I asked, and I was told that because I was a single woman who didn't have a mortgage and I didn't have kids, that I was not entitled to earn the same kind of money as the man who was sitting next to me doing the same thing. And I realized in that moment that my employers did not get it. They did not understand my value. But you know what? I did. So cut to AM Chicago. The team's hard at work, and they had been working for a long time. And after a year or so, we were asked to be syndicated. That work began to pay off. And before long, we were now no longer called AM Chicago. We're the national Oprah Winfrey show. I got a raise, but my producers did not. So I went into the boss at the time, and I asked that my producers, who incidentally were all female, I asked that they would be given a pay raise increase. And my boss, this is in 1986, said, why? They're only girls. What do they need more money for? Girls. I've used the word affectionately, sometimes referring to women as girls, and there was no affection in his tone. It was absolutely condescending. So, you know, it takes a while to develop a voice, but once you have it, you damn sure better use it on stuff that matters. So I took a deep breath in that moment and said, either they're going to get raises or I'm going to sit down. I'm not going to work if they don't get paid more, babe. I mean, I might have been too intimidated to stand my own ground against this guy if I were actually alone. But here's the thing, you're never alone. The sovereign sound of Maya Angelou's voice was pushing me forward that day, whispering, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. So many people are worried about building a brand. I hear kids on social media talking about their brand. And I used to really resent the word when people would say to me, oh, you have this brand, because I never even thought about a brand. I just thought about day in and day out, making the best right choice for me. But now I embrace it because I recognize people see me as a brand. But for me, it's not a business. It is a question of what do you stand for? And I will say this, you're nothing if you're not the truth. The biggest reward is not financial benefits, though it's really good. You can get a lot of great shoes. Nothing wrong with great shoes. But those of you who have a lot of shoes know that having great shoes and a closet full of shoes or cars or houses or square footage doesn't fill up your life. But living a life of substance can. Substance through your service, your offering of your whole self. And the baseline for how do you live a life of substance is whatever is the truth for you. What do you stand for? People may not remember your every word. They may not remember all of your actions, but they certainly remember how your words and your actions made them feel. You must know inside in the deepest part of your being that you matter. Not just that you matter, but also why. So for me, the foundational base of empowerment, of entrepreneurship, of any kind of engagement, the foundational base of my success, of my well-being, my wholeness, my everything is knowing who I am and where I come from. In my living room right now is a painting that I've owned now for 30 years. You can Google it. It's called To the Highest Bidder. And it's at the center of my house. And it's at the center of my house because it actually is symbolic of the foundation of not the house, but the foundation for my life. The painting is by Harry Roslin, who was a genre painter in the early 20th, late 19th century. And the painting is over 6 feet tall, and it shows a slave woman on the auction block holding her daughter's hand. And I cannot come in the door, my front door, or I cannot leave without passing that painting. I am reminded of where I come from every day of my life, and I am reminded because I never want to forget it. And in my library, I have a framed list of enslaved African American people, remember I showed you, who were held in bondage on various plantations, listed in the ledgers alongside the cows and the horses and the buggies and the other property. And I pass this list every day. And often I stop in front of it and just speak their names out loud and their ages. Jonas, 11 years old, $500. Sarah, 41 years old, $900. Elizabeth, 57, $800. And I force myself to consider the absurdity and the obscenity of prices being affixed to each one should they be placed up for sale. And I sometimes just pause before them with a prayer, particularly before I have to make a big decision about one of my companies or whether I move forward or whether I stay still. It reminds me, speaking those names out loud, not only of where I've come from, but how far I have to go because of them. And it reminds me that I am never alone. It reminds me of what I've come through to get through. And even when I find myself in settings where I am the only Black woman, still, that kind of singularity, it doesn't make me uncomfortable. I want people to understand, most importantly, that when you are arguing with a friend and they act like they can't hear you because they're arguing so strongly back at you, they really can't because of the way the brain is structured. So when you're in fear mode, anxiety mode, when you're really amped up, both of you need to calm down, take a walk, take a break, and come back. Well, you start with understanding that your cup being full is how you allow yourself to give to other people. You can't give what you don't have. You can't love if you haven't been loved. You don't even know how to begin to do that. So I think it begins with fundamentally understanding that you are worthy enough, you are valuable enough, you matter enough to give yourself the love that you deserve. And that starts by taking out time for yourself. So I have my own rhythm and pattern. I know that if I go 6 days and then on the 7th, by the 7th or 8th, don't give myself a break, that lots of other things give, that I'm not as alert, I'm not as attuned, I'm not as centered, I'm not as focused. So I know that is my limit. I cannot go beyond a certain amount of days. And for me, walking in nature is my solace. It is where I feel that I am one with all, and all being, all creation and, connected. For other people, it may be dancing, it may be music, it may be knitting, it may be whatever it is that brings some kind of rhythmic pattern into your life. Actually, it was Bruce and I were walking on my campus in South Africa, and there were a group of girls dancing, literally on the lawn, because Lord knows they love to dance. And Bruce says, oh, that's not just, I said, oh, they're just having fun. And Bruce said, oh, they're not just having fun, they actually are healing themselves. Because the rhythmic pattern, that's why when you've been in an argument with someone, or you're in the middle of an argument with somebody, if you just go and take a walk, or you go and turn on some music and you start dancing, if you just have some form of movement, you feel better. One of the most important things, most important takeaways from what happened to you, I believe, is understanding how the brain works. You understand that when you're upset or in fear or angry or are in an antagonized state, and you're trying to reason with a person, a child, your spouse, your boss, your friend, they literally cannot hear you because the reasoning part of the brain is in the cortex, and what you're saying is only reaching the brain stem. So whenever somebody is dysregulated, which is what that is, being anxious and fearful and yelling and screaming, the thing to do is to calm yourself first. Then you will be able to help that other person get calm and regulated. That's how you get to reason. But if you both are just yelling at each other, literally, and you're going, you don't hear me, and you don't hear me either, and you don't, they actually cannot hear you. That's what I thought was so fascinating. And everybody has a different talent. And the reason we're all so messed up is because you're looking at everybody else's talent and wishing you had some of their talent. All the energy that you spend thinking about, wishing about, being jealous of, envious of anybody else is energy that you're not only putting out is going to come back to you negatively, but you're taking that away from you. All your energy should be forced on, what do I have to offer? What do I have to give? How can I be used in service? Because Dr. King's message of not everybody can be famous, but everybody can be great, because greatness is determined by service. And there is not a job in here that you can do that you don't switch the paradigm to service and not make that job more fulfilling. I don't care what the job is. If you say, if I look at this from, how do I use this in service to something bigger than myself? It no longer becomes a job. It becomes an offering to the world. There is not one thing that has ever happened to you. Not one experience, not one encounter, not one crisis, not one joyful thing that hasn't happened just to make you better and help you rise. Every single thing you're calling in, whether you know it or not, when you figure out that you are calling it in, when you actually start meditating or praying or doing or having a spiritual practice, which is the number one thing you need if you want to be successful in the world. You need something that gives back and nourishes you. Regardless of what you call that, you need to fill your cup so that you can be so full your cup runneth over and you have enough to give to other people. If you don't fill your cup, you end up dried up. You end up tired, exhausted, and don't have enough to give to other people. You end up resentful every time somebody asks you because your cup is empty and now they want some of yours. So your number one job is to fill your cup and make yourself whole. To fulfill the highest, most truthful expression of yourself as a human being. You want to max out your humanity by using your energy to lift yourself up, your family, and the people around you. Theologian Howard Thurman said it best. He said, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive and then go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Do you believe that you are worthy of happiness? Do you believe that happiness, success, abundance, comfort, fulfillment, peace, joy, love is a part of your birthright? Is that what you believe? Or do you believe something else? Because you will manifest the life that you believe. I've always known that no matter what my belief is, I'm going to be all right. How will you use your personality, the energy of your personality, to serve that which is your soul's calling? I know this for sure. Any life, no matter how fantastic it is, how glorious it seems, how much attention you receive, how much square footage you have, any life and every life is enhanced by the sharing and the giving and the opening up of the heart space. Your life gets better when you can find a way to share it with someone else. So what we've done, you can do. I believe that beneath the surface of all physical problems is a spiritual solution. There is a spiritual solution. Why? Because you are a spiritual being having a human experience. That's the beginning of understanding spirituality. You are a spiritual being having a human experience.